everyone, and welcome back to our channel and to the third episode of the Democracy Fight Club. If you did not already, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Twitter and Instagram for more updates. I'm Vedrana Vujovic from Sarajevo, Bosnia and Herzegovina, and I will be your host for today. Note to our new listeners, Democracy Fight Club is a place for you to tune in and listen to youth from across the globe talking about their countries, about their work to champion democratic values, and about what all of us can do to make this world a better place. After the great episode from the last time, we are moving from Panama to Lebanon. I'm happy to welcome a true young leader and democratic champion, Marwan Abdallah. Marwan has been tireless in his fight for democracy for 15 years now. And welcome, Marwan. Thank you for being here with us.
Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure.
We kick off each episode with asking our guests to give us three words that best describe their countries. So, for our listeners across the world, what three words best describe Lebanon?
Well, every patriot would tell you that it's very hard to, summarize your country by only three words. But I would say the following. I would say freedom. I would say creativity, and I would say resilience.
Great.
These are the three words. Freedom, because all the minorities that live in Lebanon nowadays, at certain time throughout the past centuries, were persecuted somewhere in the world, and then they fled to Mount Lebanon and to Lebanon seeking freedom. So this is why freedom is essential for Lebanese lifestyle. Second, creativity, because we are known as people who have entrepreneurial spirit as from the day you are born, and whenever we go abroad, we succeed. We have very prominent Lebanese, scientists, doctors, innovators everywhere, and we are proud of them. Unfortunately, they are not in Lebanon; they are abroad. And third, resilience, because you hear always in the news about Lebanon and the problems and all that, and also you hear about Lebanon as the number one party destination, as the number one tourism destination. So we managed to pass through all these challenges and all these hard times, but at the same time continue to live and continue to be, these people that likes to live and love the lifestyle and all that. So these are the three words. I don't know if I, if I was able to.
Great. It's very interesting and very different three words, but very interesting. Yeah. A very nice way to describe your country. So 2020 has been difficult year for all of us. For Lebanon, August was particularly difficult due to explosion in Beirut, causing at least 200 deaths and more than 6,000 injuries, and $15 billion in property damage. After 4 months, so it's December now, from this point, how is Lebanon doing? And how would you evaluate the response to this tragic event?
The thing with the Beirut explosion that happened on August 4th is that Lebanese people were saying before that okay, this is the bottom. We reached the worst situation that can ever happen to our country, the worst economic crisis, the worst financial crisis, devaluation of the currency, inflation, pandemic, COVID-19. We were thinking in July that this is it. We reached bottom and things cannot get worse. And then on August 4th, there was this big explosion, which is considered one of the biggest in the world, and that hit the center of Beirut and killed, as you mentioned, more than 200 people and all that. So it was a big shock. We all you can pass through an economic crisis. You can hope that maybe one day you do better. If you have security problems, you can hide in your home. If you have, I don't know, a financial problem, you can try to have a different lifestyle. But when you are sitting in your home and then the explosion hit you and you die while you are sitting in your home, and children die while they are at their homes, this is something that no normal human being can tolerate. And this is what happened to us. It was a big shock to everyone, not just the citizens of the residents of Beirut. It was a shock to everyone in Lebanon and everyone in the world. And this happened under a failed state. So we are now in a failed state. We have a corrupt government. We have a failed government. Imagine after 4 months, as you mentioned, the investigation is still not getting anywhere. And whenever they try to get somewhere with the judges getting to a certain point, there's always political and sectarian deadlock in front of them. Recovery, there was no recompensation given to any of the residents. The state is very late and very slow in providing them with support to rebuild their homes, to rebuild their businesses. All international support that's coming, and I think this was a big component to help the residents to restore their lives. Is not enough. It's good, but it's not enough. And there is a lack of governance and lack of willingness to help these people. And you see the residents of Beirut, they are looking, they are alone. There's no municipality to take care of them because it's corrupt as well. There's no government to take care of them because the government resigned after the explosion. And until today, the ruling parties in the parliament are failing to form a new government. So imagine in the time where Lebanon needs the most a cabinet to do reforms, to do reconstruction, to give people money to survive and all that. The parties are just fighting over pieces in over certain portfolio here and the ministry here and share in the government here. So after 4 months, things are even worse than they were before. Unfortunately, people are still recovering from the wounded. There are many people who were wounded who are still in the hospitals. Some people are still in coma. People are still traumatized from the big explosion, from what happened that day. And I cannot say that after 4 months we are on the right path for recovery from the Beirut explosion. Unfortunately, things are getting worse.
Yeah, I completely understand because Lebanon has a very complex political system, same as Bosnia and Herzegovina. So we talk about, prep call about that. There is so much security crisis, economy and financial crisis, and also so much political crisis. So I remember you saying that there are many layers of democracy, and in that state that you didn't have consensus since 1932. We can relate a lot with these issues too here in Bosnia. But you also said that you have a friend and some people in Lebanon advocates for the Bosnian model in Lebanon. And we know how complex is our model. So can you tell us what makes that Lebanon model so complex? And also, how would that Bosnian model of political system will be better? On what way will it be better for Lebanon?
Yeah, I remember our discussion when we were talking about Lebanon and Bosnia and the similarities. The thing is, our countries have minorities and have a problem of coexistence and power sharing. So this is the main issue here. But the difference between Bosnia and Lebanon, that you have, I think, three big ethnic minorities.
Yeah.
In Lebanon, you have six big ethnic religious minorities, and then you have 17 religious minorities. So it's more complex. One. Second, uh, the historical ties of the minorities who live in Lebanon, again, going back to the freedom question, when everyone left where they were persecuted and came to Lebanon, they still have ties with the countries of origin, still have ties with, you know, some people are supported by this country, some people are supported by that country. And this is also a second layer. So there's the one internal on how to govern and power sharing within the state. The second one is about foreign policy and what camp, if you want to put it that way, should Lebanon be with on in terms of foreign policy. The third layer is also the citizens and the rights of the citizens and the rights of the individuals and the rights of the groups. So because you have the collective rights of the groups of each sect, of each religion, and then you have the individual right of each citizen, each person. And then you have an additional one, which is the presence of an armed militia in Lebanon. We have, I don't know if our model is similar to any model in the world, but we have a state, a government, an army, security forces. Then you have a militia that is present in Lebanon and has its own hospitals, schools, and institutions. So there's two states, and it's not just a state within a state, it's two parallel states coming together. So the complexity of the system cannot just be said, let's say, yeah, let's maybe give more powers to the prime ministers, or maybe add a number of MPs, or maybe make a rotation in the presidency, and then okay, things will be fine. There are many levels of intervention. There's the level of individuals, level of societies, level of state, and here, when we say similarities, it's just about how we can coexist together. So imagine we have a centralized system, one government, one central government holding all the powers, and then you have different minorities fighting over a share in the government. So then the mentality of the people, for them to be represented in the government and for them to vote for their representatives in the parliament, wouldn't be on who is best to build a state, but it's about who is best to represent my own interest in the central government. So they are sending ambassadors to the central government. They are not sending someone to build a country that's equal for all. And I think here, when they say we want to do something similar to the Bosnian model, is about how to have regions have some powers to themselves, have at least some of the services being implemented and executed on the local level rather than only being centralized, have a rotation in the positions, so not just every sect will have this position for itself and then deny it from everyone else, and then started consolidating a certain collective community support to this position rather than being supported and held by the rule of law and by the constitution. So going back to the question of similarities, uh, I think the mistake that we did, we had a civil war for 15 years between 1975 and 1990, and the main reason was the power sharing and how to have some more powers for this sect and this community. So the problem that we did in 1990 when we did the pact to end the civil war is that we postponed the problem that was created during the war to a later stage, and this is why every 10 to 15 years you have a crisis in Lebanon since the independence of the country. It's not just since the civil war. And today, 2020 is 15 years after 2005 when we had the Big Cedar Revolution, when we expelled the Syrian occupying forces. So every 15 years or every 10 years you have a crisis. And I think the way to start to have a solution in Lebanon, a radical solution in Lebanon, is by changing the system on the relation between the communities, on the power sharing within the state, and then the relation between the citizen and the state, remove all the middleman, either parties or communities, between the citizen, the individual, and the state. So this would be maybe the first milestone to move forward.
Yeah, I think that it's very important because for me, I didn't learn in school so much about that complex political system in Lebanon, and it's very interesting to hear uh, that situation, political system situation, from the first hand, as I will say.
Just to give
Here
you
in Bosnia,
something to feel okay about yourself, there's a French journalist who said, if you think that you understand Lebanese politics, it means you understand nothing. So don't never worry about, yeah, I want to understand. Nobody, even us, we don't understand. Sometimes things happen in the country, and then we are like, okay, this is something new. So even for us, it's not understandable. So you're okay.
I think that's same for Bosnia also,
Yeah.
because some our friends from the region, from Croatia or Serbia, Montenegro, we are talking about the same language. We really understand each other very well, but they still can't maybe understand how complex is our political system, because we have three members of the president in presidency. We
Yeah.
have two entities, one district. In a federation of the Bosnia and Herzegovina, we have 10 cantons and also municipality in all countries. So it's very interesting and complex, but we also need some constitutional reforms that we are going to, especially because we are looking forward to the EU and the NATO integration. So it's very necessary, just because, okay, we have three ethnic groups, but we also have that group that is called citizens. And
Exactly.
in our electoral system and in our political system, in these institutes of the political representation, we don't have much space for these citizens. only major space is for ethnical representatives of the ethnical groups. But it's maybe good to stop the conflict, but it's not very good to make some EU or any kinds of good democratic progress.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah. So you have done a lot of work with the political parties and you have been a strong advocate for democracy in Lebanon. What are you the most proud of? What is the most important thing that you did in your community or in your political behavior?
It's not just one thing. I don't have one achievement that's it's a lifetime achievement. I don't have something like that. What I have is that we manage at a certain point, because in Lebanon there was a big division between the youth who don't want anything to do with parties, with politics, because this is bad. This reminds them of the civil war. Their parents told them don't be engaged with any party because this means that the parties will fight each other and you might die. All these clashes. And some people who joined parties because their parents are in the party, or because they have someone who was martyred during the war with the party and they believe in this. So what I think that me and many people from like-minded people who think alike in terms of political engagement, we managed to have some acceptance among these two groups that you can be a party member without being just going there to do some fights and problems, and you can be a non-party member but at the same time talk about politics and be engaged. So we reconciliated between the political work from one side and the youth from the other side, and this was shown in the elections in the universities. This was shown in many demonstrations that we made throughout the years. I was beaten many times in many demonstrations, and we keep doing that. Even last year we had the big protest, big uprising in 2019, in October 2019, where mainly the youth, university students, high school students, we all took the streets to protest what was happening in the country, and we still are, but now it's more maybe virtual because of COVID and everything. So we managed to re-engage the youth in the political work, or saying that you have a duty to be engaged in politics and to try to, and make reform and make the country look like you, because at the end of the day you are educated, you speak 30 languages, you have access to the whole world, you see what's happening, you see the technological advancement. You cannot keep living in a country that thinks like the Middle Ages. So everyone knew that at certain point it's not, there's no time for us to wait and yeah, solution will come. We have to create the solution and we have to take it in our hands. And this is, I think, an important achievement that people like me, not me, but people like me did by engaging youth and saying that you can be educated and you can be, peaceful and at the same time be engaged in politics. It doesn't mean that you have to be part of this system of just being a blind supporter and just going to do the fights on the streets and all that. So this is something that I'm proud of, and I still advocate for it because it doesn't mean either or. You can be both.
Yeah, definitely. When you said about it, your activism, you remind me that maybe you can be our maybe some kind of trainer on our ALPI program, because ALPI program is for young political leaders from Bosnia and Herzegovina, from the political parties. And ALPI program is proof that we in Bosnia and Herzegovina, from any political party, no matter where we came from, what ethnical group we are, what political party we are, we can uh, do some really good work together, because we have so much teams and so much problems in common, especially because we are young and we all,
Exactly.
people, all young people have the same problem and the same issues. So there is so much things that we are having in common that then I think that's it. I don't
I
know.
just want to give you one example. I
Yeah.
think it was 2015 or 2014. All the members of the youth wings of the parties in Lebanon came together and did several meetings together, and we came up with a youth policy document. And this youth policy document was endorsed by the government. I think it was 2013. It was endorsed by the government because all the youth from all the parties worked on, and the focus was the youth of Lebanon. So
Yeah.
this is also a way where people, even if they come from different parties and they disagree on maybe foreign policy, but you can agree on a tax, you can agree on tuition fees, you can agree on university education, you can agree. There are plenty of things that you can agree, and this is where you should start with, by building a common ground, building trust, and then work on the controversial issues, because at the end of the day, you have to find a solution.
Yeah,
So
sometimes I think that we young political leaders or youth, all kind of youth from the political parties have I don't know, so much space and some kind of freedom to make agreements or agree, but with the other colleagues from the political parties, and maybe our older political leaders or our political presidents of the our political parties, they usually agree to disagree. So I think that is a main difference between our young political leaders and they're little bit older than us. So we talk about, you said that there is always kind of crisis in the Lebanon, same as Bosnia. So I would like to talk about migration crisis. From migration from the Middle East and into the Africa. Bosnia and Herzegovina has been dealing with that since a few years ago. And unfortunately, we have not been very successfully in dealing with this issue because we have so many circumstances, such as things that happening on our borders, and that makes our general security system, or our security system have been in crisis because of that. As I know, Lebanon has almost a million asylum seekers from Syria. What has been your experience in dealing with this?
The experience of Lebanon with the refugees coming from Syria is a very bad one. But I will tell you what's the difference between us and you. Lebanon has two countries on its borders. So we have Syria and we have Israel. Lebanon and Israel are technically at war, so the borders are closed. So the only open borders for Lebanon are Syria. And then the third border is the sea, the Mediterranean Sea. So what happened is that when Syrians fled the war from Syria and wanted somewhere where there's no bombs being shelled at them, they came to Lebanon, not because it's a place for them to have a better life, but it's a place for them to survive, to be alive. So this is why I think at the first it was 1.5 million Syrians who came to Lebanon, and they were stuck here, technically stuck here, because they cannot go further to Israel, to Egypt, because it's closed. They cannot go to the other way because it's Syria again, and they cannot go in the sea and go to Europe because we have the army. We have a state, a sovereign state that will close the borders. So, and this is where the problem started. The problem started because the government didn't have a plan, because at that time the government was allied with the Bashar al-Assad regime. So the allies of Bashar al-Assad regime were in the government, and they denied that there's a problem in Syria, and they kept, living in denial that no, there's some protest and things will calm down, and no problem with the refugees, blah blah blah. And then we kept having hundreds of tens of thousands of people coming in, and then we woke up, we have 1 million refugees, we don't know what we should do, and we are very late in being engaged in the problem. And so we have no camps, we don't know, we have no official count for the number of refugees. Imagine, we don't have an official count for the number of refugees who are in Lebanon. uh, it's all in the hands of the UN agencies and the NGOs. The Lebanese state is doing a minimal work in just coordinating the work of the NGOs and the response, but we don't have a proper plan to manage the crisis nowadays and to see what are the solutions, because they are not doing any effort to return the refugees home, or at least to send them back to safe zones where there's no more fight and conflict in Syria, and it's possible, but they are not doing that. There's no plan to try to send them, maybe resettle them to third countries other than Lebanon, because it's very hard for Lebanon to have all these refugees naturalized and to be settled in Lebanon. It's impossible for us. It will create a social explosion in the country. But the government is failing on so many levels. And now, with the economic and financial crisis that we are facing, the problem of refugees is becoming even more and more, because there's now an imbalance, or there's no equality between the Lebanese citizen and the refugee who is getting support from the UN, but the Lebanese citizen is not. So this is creating a social unrest in some places. It's not big yet, thank God, but hopefully it will not get worse. So the management is bad, and still the government is failing, and now also the government is allied, or the ruling parties are mainly allied with Bashar al-Assad regime. They are not doing any effort to at least bring these refugees back to their houses where there's no more conflict in Syria. So we have very bad experience, and I don't think you would like us to share it with you or to have best practices, because I don't have best practices to share them with you, unfortunately.
Yeah, because I asked you this because Bosnia and Herzegovina is a transit country for the refugees, and maybe the last country before the EU borders.
Yeah,
But because the EU borders is closed, they are stuck here in Bosnia, and the governance or local community did not answer very well. There is also many UN institutions and the IOM and the NGOs that they are working with refugees, but the situation is not very good because there are currently security problem for citizens, especially in Sarajevo, in Bihać, in Tuzla, in Mostar, and also in that kinds of little villages or cities, municipalities near borders with Serbia and also with Croatia. So I think it's very not important, but maybe it is important to speak about that just because maybe we can't do more from as individuals. But when we talk about that migration crisis in Lebanon and also in Bosnia and also in Serbia and Greece, in Macedonia, and in that transition route in all that countries, we are talking about it, and this is a very important. Uh, I don't know how to say it. It's a rule of the Democracy Fight Club. Always talk about it. So even if it's good and if it's bad, you must always talk about it. So as young people, we have to mention our role in the world. You've said in our prep talk that young people need to move from their followers mentality to being part of the change or be the change you wish to see in the world. How can we fight for democracy, and what will be your one advice? Since we don't have so much time, this will be our maybe last question. So maybe some kind of message, or maybe I don't know, anything for our listeners across the world.
yeah. The question of democracy, I think it's the most unsolved question of humanity. It's been since the Greeks and the Romans, and nowadays we are still debating and asking about democracy and asking questions. The thing, I think we need to believe in many layers. First, you, democracy is not about numbers, and this is what people should understand. This is what we as youth should understand, because we are the generation of social media, and you know how much popular you are by how many likes you have on Instagram, or how many followers you have on Twitter, or how many retweets. It's not about numbers. Democracy is not about numbers. This is one. And I don't know how we can translate this into act on the ground, because until now, ballots, it's about numbers. So we need to work on the fact that democracy is not about numbers. One. Second, democracy is about values. You cannot have a democracy. We have our neighbors, the Syrians, the Bashar al-Assad regime. They do elections every 4 or 5 years, and the Bashar al-Assad, he gets 99% of the votes. It's democracy. People went to ballots, they voted for him, he got 99%. This is not democracy. You need to have democratic values, you need to have freedom, you need to have diversity in political life, you need to have a vibrant society, you need to have rights for women, for youth, for people to be engaged, not just only one section of the society to be engaged. So you need to have the values, we call them the democratic values, some people call them the Western values, some people call them, I don't know. You need to have these values to have a proper working democracy. You need to have accountability, transparency. You need to have tolerance to each other. If someone is having a different opinion, you cannot start a fight using guns and
Yeah.
kill each other. It's not democracy. So this is also democracy. The third one, democracy is about seeking a better life, a better position, a better situation. It's democracy is about moving forward. It's not about just maybe yeah, let's do repeat the same mistakes of 100 years ago. Or democracy is about moving forward. If you do not believe that democracy is about moving forward, we need to rethink our approach to democracy. So us as youth, because we are educated, because we are connected, because we have now, if I ask you a question, just take your phone, you Google the answer and give me the answer. So we have so much potential in our hands, we have the tools in our hands. And if we are not able to work and to benefit from the tools that we are given to us, uh, thanks to the years of experience and years of innovation and technology. If we don't benefit from this, then we do not deserve a better life. So if we want to say that we deserve a better treatment, a better life, a better quality of life, we need to own up to the tools that we have and work for a better future. So this is how I see democracy, and this is how I see the youth engagement in democracy.
So keep moving forward.
Yes,
Definitely,
exactly.
that's the spirit. Thank you, Marwan. It was a pleasure having us as our
Thank
third
you.
guest.
Thank you for hosting me. It
Definitely,
was also a pleasure, and it's my first experience actually with Bosnia and Herzegovina, and I hope it will not be my last. And I'm very much looking forward to more engagement with you guys.
definitely won't be last. You're officially welcome into our Democracy Fight Club. And
Thank you.
I'm hoping that maybe when this pandemic is going to stop, that we have create some kind of opportunities to be our guest in Bosnia and Herzegovina and also in Sarajevo, just to see the spirit of Sarajevo, which is very interesting because we are, I don't know, some people say we are Jerusalem in a little little Jerusalem because we are mix of the East and the West. So I'm very happy and I'm inviting you. So whenever you are come, it will be our pleasure.
Thank you
Thanks
so much. It
everyone.
will be it will be an honor for me.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for listening. 10th Generation Democracy, Alpi and IRI for supporting, and make sure to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and definitely subscribe to our channel for more upcoming episodes and very interesting stories. That's it. Thank you so much. Bye.